Welcome to the Big Four Accounting Firms podcast, brought to you by big4accountingfirms.com and the Big Four Accounting Firms YouTube channel. Before we get started, just wanted to remind everybody to support us if you have a chance or if you can. Even $1 helps, and we have a link in the description to a website called Buy Me a Coffee. It's just a way to donate to us and support us. Again, any amount is helpful so that we can keep putting out content. And there's also other ways for you to support us in the show notes to this podcast or on YouTube in the description. In today's podcast, I wanted to cover what it's like to recruit for a Big Four job versus other jobs. And primarily, I want to compare the Big Four to other industry jobs or maybe smaller accounting firms, because a lot of people want to know or want to try to get a job at the Big Four. It's much easier to get a job at the Big Four as an accountant than it is in industry. And if you are going to go into industry, it's easier to go into industry after you've left, after being in the Big Four, and you should be looking for your industry job while you're working in the Big Four, because the difference between the Big Four and an industry job or maybe a smaller accounting firm is that the Big Four need a lot of people. And we see that in the stories that we talk about, where they're now, after COVID-19, they're trying to offer all these incentives to keep people at the firms and to recruit them back. In some instances, they're going after the people that they laid off. And this is because the Big Four accounting firms are growing in the work that they're winning because of government work. And I even saw a statistic today that 34% of the income in the U.S. is now coming from the U.S. government. And that's not the Big Four accounting firms. That's just in general. And I think this means more work for the Big Four accounting firms because they're already improved in government systems. And also they're improved in the largest companies in the world. And that means they're just going to win a lot more work because the largest companies in the world are only getting larger. But with that being said, the Big Four accounting firms care less about your personality fit in a given group than they do about your degree in accounting, your CPA if you're in the United States, and then in other countries, your certifications. That's what they care about. When you look for a Big Four job, it's mandatory that you have a lot of those requirements. Especially if you work in the accounting departments and not in consulting in the Big Four accounting firms. And that's really the differentiation. What I'm trying to say is that when you're going out there and you're interviewing with firms other than the Big Four accounting firm, well, not firms, but in industry, the departments are much smaller. You have to think of the Big Four accounting firms, it's tens of thousands of accountants across the world, where an accounting department might be a few accountants, 20, 30, and a big department maybe 100, 200 accountants in there. And so it's less of, do you have the right requirements of being an accountant, CPA, and do you have specialized industry knowledge with the company that you're interviewing with? And then on top of that, you have to make sure that you mesh with the people in the department, whether it's an accounting department, finance department, tax department. It's more of a fit. And when you interview with people in those industry jobs, whether or not you get it is really a fit with the HR, the head of the department, maybe middle management within the department. And it takes a lot longer to get a response because in a smaller accounting department, you're most likely dealing with HR. And HR in most companies is not that big. And they don't have dedicated recruiters, and they don't have as many dedicated recruiters as the Big Four accounting firms do. The Big Four accounting firms have campus recruiters. They have experienced hire recruiters. And these people, where their only job is to just get out there and hire people, get them approved, background check, everything. And they're doing it every day, and they're getting their offers out as fast as they can, especially if they win a lot of work, which they probably are right now. I mean, I think all the accounting firms in most areas are going to be winning a lot of work. So it's just something to consider, because a lot of people think there's a ton of options for accountants, and there are, but depending on how you approach it, you're going to have to work a lot harder to get a job outside of the big four accounting firms than you are with the big four accounting firms, because the big four accounting firms need so many people, and they're going to work faster to get you in the system. It's still going to take time. It's still going to take months if you're going through the process. But if you're going to try and get a job in industry, you might take 3-6 months, maybe even a year to find the right place and then get through the system. Because first you're going to have to interview with HR, then you're going to have to interview with your boss in that industry job, and then you might have to interview with the head of the department, and then you might have to interview with maybe the head of HR, the CFO, maybe even higher ups, because it might be a smaller company, might be more integrated. They might not hire that many people, so they're very scared to hire people, and they just make you interview. You might go through 5 interviews before you get a job in industry, where the big four accounting firms, you might go through 3 or 4, but they're going to be quick. They're not going to poke as hard into your past, as long as you have a CPA, some experience, things like that. And that's on the experience side. And the campus recruiting side, it'll be more of, do you meet the requirements, GPA, certification? If not, are you working towards it? So that's just something I wanted to highlight to just give people an idea of what it's like to find a job. And it's not just in accounting, but in accounting, we have more opportunity because we have the big four accounting firms, which employ hundreds of thousands and now over 1 million people. So that's just something to keep in mind. If it's easier to find a job as a big four accountant, as long as you have your degree, certification, your background check is good, than it is in industry, because industry is just not used to hiring as many people as the big four accounting firms are. So that's the podcast for today. Stay up to date. Make sure to subscribe to this podcast. If you can, support us financially through the Buy Me a Coffee link. If you can't do that, then leave us a 5-star review on iTunes to help us out. And thanks for listening.